Well, hello everyone. We might still have some people joining, but I will start this meeting now. So hello everyone and welcome to this FIA Future Now webinar. And before we get started, I would like to share a few housekeeping with you. First, know that this session is being recorded and that it will be made available later on the FIA YouTube channel as a resource. Then you need to know that today's webinar will be conducted entirely in English and that there will be no interpretation. And finally, I want to tell you that today's webinar will be sorry, I said that already. I want to say that we'll have a 20 minutes Q&A session at the end of this event. So please hold your question till then. So with that being said, it's a great pleasure for me to hand things over to our president, Gabriel Carteris, for the official welcome.
Thank you so much, Camille. I am so excited. Hello, everyone. I just want to welcome you again, as Camille said, to the FIA Future Now webinar on engaging young people in trade unions. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm an actor, and I am the past president of SAG-AFTRA and the proud president of the International Federation for Actors, otherwise known as FIA. And it's really is a wonderful pleasure to be here today. I have looked forward to this webinar. And then the idea that so many of you signed up to be here today from around the globe actually speaks to exactly what this day is about. It is vital, this conversation, because it really actually reminds us of the next generation and its importance and how it plays such a crucial role in shaping the future of labor. And I don't mean only for artists, even though that's what we are, a lot of us, but for workers, for unions everywhere. It is so important. So for anyone new to this group, FIA Future Now is our young members network, and it was founded with great pride and excitement in 2022. It brings together 32 passionate unionists under the age of 35, which is fabulous. It represents 18 performers unions across 16 countries. We want to see that grow, and it will continue to grow. And their mission is actually very clear. It's here to amplify the voices of young performers, to champion their interests, to ensure their ideas help shape the Federation's work. Because we all know that unions cannot thrive without young people. They are our lifeblood. They are the lifeblood of all trade unions. And FIA Future Now is our investment in the future of our professions and is the strength of our collective voice. So today's webinar, which, as I said, is very important, builds on the recommendations for engaging young people in trade unions, which was published by the Youth Committee of the European Trade Union Confederation, ETUC. I have to say it's really an important document that they've put forward, and I encourage everybody to read it. These recommendations provide practical guidance on attracting, empowering, retaining young members, ensuring their voices drive real change, real growth across the labor movement. This work is so deeply connected to the broader movement. Look, I've been a part of the labor movement for a very long time. And what I've really recognized is that we are not an island. So I'm going to give you an example of what I'm trying to say. I'm a proud member of SAG-AFTRA, of Equity. Now, SAG-AFTRA, I want to speak to, because that's where I was the president, is not only a part of FIA, but it's also a proud member of the International Trade Union Confederation, ITUC. And that is the global counterpart to ETUC. And I say this only to remind us that the fight for dignity, for fairness, and workers' rights matters everywhere, no matter the industry, because we are workers and we are part of something bigger. So with that, I will say no more. I'm delighted to introduce Céline Ruffier. She's president of ETUC Youth. Céline has extensive experience advocating for young workers across Europe, and she's going to share key insights from ETUC's work on engaging young people in trade unions. Again, Céline, I say you have done incredible work, and I'm so happy that you're here to be with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle, and hello, everyone. Well, good evening or good morning, depending on the part of the world you are. As you can see with my voice, I'm a bit, I did catch a cold, just like, there you go. So I'm sorry for the voice, but I will try to do my best to speak loud and clear. I will share my presentation with you, and then I will start. Let's see, can I share my screen? Yes, I do, there. Can you see my screen? Yeah? Okay, all good. Okay, so I'm glad to be with you today. As you know, as you said, Gabrielle, we are part of a counterpart, ITUC and ETUC. We work strong together, and I'm myself part of the ITF, which is the International Transport Federation. So I know a lot about actually international federation as well. And I'm glad I'm here today to also learn a bit about you because I have to be honest, I don't know a lot about your work. So I'm interested in knowing more about your best practices as well, because the document I'm going to share with you is a toolkit. It's a living document. It's not a magical toolkit, but it's a living document, and it can be enriched with all best practices we can gather. And we are actually working now on the next generation toolkit. So what is the ETUC Youth Committee? I'm going to give you a little insight on how we are working, what we are, and then I will move on to the ETUC recommendation. So we represent young trade unionists across Europe, all under 35. We are part of the ETUC as a whole. So the ETUC is the European Trade Union Confederation, and we are committed to social justice, dignity at work, and strong workers' rights. But what we are committed also is to implement youth structure within the affiliates of the ETUC, which is, I have to say, sometimes the hardest thing to do, and give a voice to young workers in the movement. Then, how we are organized. So we are composed of a youth representative from all European and different sectors, but also from European Federation, who are also affiliates of the ETUC. We have a secretariat, a policy officer, we have a bureau, the bureau and the vice president. Both me and the vice president are member of the executive board of the ETUC. We have a 2 years mandate. And just know this, the 2 years mandate is only for the youth committee. So this is something we most probably will work on for the next Congress, because in 2 years, it's difficult to achieve a lot when the other members know each other for so many years, actually, and are staying 5 years. So this is something, the next step, what we're going to change. Um, so how ETUC is driving the change? So we used to have a structure, a youth structure back since 2013, if I'm not mistaken, more or less. But we didn't have a quota. For example, every time you came to the Congress of ETUC, there was no young members at the table at all. It was only old union leaders. I can say old. I'm among people, I can say old. So old union leaders with their advisor, but no youth at all. Youth were only there for the youth committee, and then you didn't see them during the 4 years mandate. So we advocate for a youth quota during the Lisbon Congress. But we had to take 4 years to actually build the youth quota and advocate for it internally, to find allies within the ETUC affiliates. And we finally passed the youth quota in Berlin in 2022. So now for the next Congress, all ETUC affiliates needs to bring you to the table a young member under 35, and if they don't, I put the rule on the PowerPoint, but if they don't, they will have the voting rights reduced. So this was only voted for the Congress, not for the midterm, but we are really like looking forward to it, because now we're gonna see if I'm actually bringing young people to the table. Yeah, right. No, okay. So why we did work on this recommendation? So, well, as you know, and as Gabrielle said, we have this trend of de-unionization trend. The membership in the unions are decreasing. Most of the time, there is some kind of disenchantment about unions. When you ask young people, for example, in my country, in France, they say, no, unions only work on pensions, which is not true. But we don't have this political education back in schools to know what is a union about until you join the labor market. But this, again, is cultural, depends of the country. So yeah, very low number of people under 25 joining your unions. But as a matter of fact, you also know that there is a clear survey showing that the earlier you join a union, most likely you're going to stay in the union. So that's why union needs to work on it. So in 2018, we decided to build a questionnaire. And this we did with a project with ILO Actrav that you might be familiar with, because they were also conducting a global index at the same time on unionization for youth and the interest of youth in the union work. And then we compiled a lot of best practices from affiliates, and then we just said, okay, what are the main common points of all these best practices? And we came up with this ETUC youth recommendation. So 8 of them, which is like, again, a basic tool. It seems to be really basic, but at the end, it's really like a toolkit that people can get inspired by and implement in their union. So now to the trade unions and why they should recruit young members. So the ETUC Youth Recommendation, 8 of them. So first, get hold of the data. We have seen that in many unions, part of the ETUC, most of the time, youth was not even a category. Sector was a category, gender was a category, but youth was not part of it because they are not paying as youth. They just join a union. They don't declare themselves as young members. So we said you should categorize youth as a category. This way you are able to know your labor market and be able to tailor-made some campaigns and actually reflect your affiliates if you tailor-made the campaigns based on your data. So this is something like it's the main point of the recommendation. If you don't know how many young people you got in your union, then how are you gonna be able to tackle the issue they are facing? So this was the first one. Then recruitment of young members. So there is a simple fact that youth should speak to youth. There is a peer-to-peer approach. How can I say this? If it's just a white old man going to say, yeah, you should join a union, nobody's gonna join, okay? I'm not being very politely correct, but still, if it's the case, nobody's gonna join. Youth should speak to youth. You should go to places where youth are not expecting you. For example, there's this union in I think in Croatia, they went to this techno festival, techno musical festival, and nobody expected them there. Like basically, they did speak about the labor market and what youth was facing, but they did it with putting glitters on people. So this is things you can do as a young member to encourage youth interest into the and recruitment. Also, there is another best practices I want to share with you. You have to think of the fee. Um, Sometimes paying, for example, 10 euro to join a union when you have a close budget and very tight budget because you are having a precarious job is very difficult. So a union I know from, I think the UK, if I'm not mistaken, maybe not the UK, but I think it's the UK, did this discovery fee. Basically, during 6 months, the fee was free, like €0. And so not the UK if it was the euro, but maybe before. So €0 fee, but yeah, and then they joined the union and they stayed actually in the union. Even if it was only 6 months at the end, they stayed in the union. So yeah, peer-to-peer approach, but also built campaign on youth topic. For example, in France, we did this campaign on seasonal jobs. So during the summer, most of the time, union, nothing is happening in union. I don't know about you, but in France, nothing is happening. But there is a lot of seasonal worker. And what we are doing is going out there and inform workers, which are most of the time young people, on their rights and their rights if and employment rights and housing rights and everything. So we built an app, and we founded an app, and then this is something it's actually working a lot, and we are doing this every year now. The youth-friendly approach, it's basically it's linked to what I said before. It's raise awareness of youth topics. Invest in campaigns to tackle their issue. There is this union in Spain that did this campaign on housing. So they went to the parliament and they delivered this little house in paper box. And within the box, so the box looked like a rental agency making communication, but the box was actually their demands inside the box. And this was like a really shocking action, but it was actually a good idea because this way they tackled housing and they got a meeting with the parliament and they actually are now working on a paper on John paper. So also on the training, you can also think of gamification. Most of the time we see trainings in unions, so it's basically a PowerPoint, so I cannot give any advice because I'm doing a PowerPoint now. But gamification, like you can build serious game, escape games as well. We built with the ETUC Youth, we built an escape game on far right, how to tackle the far right with an escape game. So it was really like you enter a room and then you don't go out of the room until you have passed all of this adventure. And at the end, you're supposed to be decontaminated. So we built an old narrative and all like very key challenges on the far right. And it was actually a huge success. Now people are asking to bring this to their national level. So yeah, where am I? Wait, youth-friendly approach and communication, youth structure. So I told you about the quota already, but I think establish a strong youth structure is very important. Not only you should have meaningful participation of young members, but also a youth agenda. It's not okay for the youth to have its side agenda. The agenda of the youth should be a whole part of the youth of the agenda of the confederation or the international federation. It's not just a sub-subject. They should have their own political mandate. They should report back to the executive board on their agenda. For us, the agenda in TTC Youth is platform workers, LGBTQI rights, housing, quality traineeship package, these kind of things. They also should have autonomy and financial support. You cannot build a youth agenda with no financial support. Either you can fund project, but you need to rely on financial support and sometimes also on a policy officer. Like you should not just be something on the side table. You should have someone dedicated to help you on this topic. So this is clearly linked to invest in your youth structure. The structure will only be strong if you invest in it. So decision process and youth structure. Yeah, so voice and vote, like I told you, maybe quotas. Quotas depends on what kind of quotas you're actually putting. For example, a quota with no, let's say, no retaliation if they don't respect the quota, then it's not effective. You have to have a quota and something to actually work on. Youth should not be only the last one to speak. Often you see in confederation or even in international federation that youth, since it's a last letter of the alphabet, they speak last. No, youth should be a priority, and as such, they should be speaking first. So sit at the table and the first to speak, or at least in the middle, but not the last one, okay? Because they are the priority, so we should make them a priority. So trade union policies for young people. So specific policies, like I told you, in the agenda can be on platform workers for us was the case, traineeship package, because this is a kind of precarious work, 0-hour contract, this kind of thing. But also capacity building is also linked to this. So kind of training, you go to school. You also have this mentoring program in the ETUC. We are having a 1-year program each year, which is funded by the EU Commission and the FES Foundation. It's called the Young Leader Program. I don't know if you heard of it, but basically during a year, 30 young people of ETUC are going to learn how to negotiate, how to speak in public, how to know the European culture and the European scene, for example. So yeah, build tailor-made program mentoring. We are now working with the Transport Workers Federation, for example, on a mentoring program, basically shadowing a general secretary during a week, and then they do feedbacks. So try to bridge the generational gap between old with commas and new leaders, because this way we will actually build the future. We also need to give key to those people. Another good practice I really like actually is it's my own union, but we do this little fake congress because it's not just fair to put young people to a congress and not give them the key to actually do something during the congress. So we stage a congress during a full week and we learn how to make amendments, how to speak in public, how to push for an amendment, we stage a real congress like 2 years before the actual congress to give them the key how to go to a congress and advocate for youth. Yeah, so I think I made a very good practice. Why we do this, obviously, engage the next generation, address unique concerns, social justice, housing, develop future leadership, like you said, Gabrielle, in your introduction. It's really important because they are the blood of the next, we are the blood of the next generation, and youth is not the future. Youth is now. I mean, we need to act now. I think we are kind of already late. Promote new ideas, and we can actually learn things from youth. I mean, the whole social media thing. Now, a union that doesn't have a TikTok account is already late. I mean, the whole youth part is doing this TikTok political education, so we need to be ahead of it. And now I will give you a little insight of what we are planning next with the ETUC Youth. So we made this declaration at the last executive board that we want to empower more young female leaders. I mean, we clearly see that most of the time we see male leaders. Well, it's not the case here with Gabrielle, but it's clearly the case we see. It's a pattern we see in Europe, but most of the time it's male leading a union. And we are also working on developing a youth policy, a youth test. And this one is really important because basically the idea of the youth test is it's really like a test we are working on a computer. Every policy that comes out of the ETUC is done by a secretariat or policy officer anywhere in the ETUC should be youth-proof. And this is like a bunch of criteria we are developing, and we are making this digital tool, and then we will implement this at the next, I think, next executive board, we will present it. But yeah, a youth test to see that everything that comes out should be youth-proof. And we also work on a new training center, trade union renewal center we just opened. So this happened in April during the Belgrade conference. We decided to open this new trade union renewal center. So basically it's a 1-year project starting in May until June 2026, where we're going to work on 3 pillars. So the membership growth, obviously, how to have more people, more young members involved. The bargaining power also, so social policies and trade union vitality, like how we can make unions still something trendy, let's say. I will say this like this. So basically it's 5 regional workshops in person in different regions of the ETUC and 5 webinars with different topics. We just had one, we will continue, but yeah, the idea is also to create a task force of ETUC youth plus trade union leaders who commit to this task force to discuss the trade union renewal. And yeah, I think that's it for me. If the last slides wants to go, no, yes, okay. Then that's it for me. I hope I stick to the time and that you could still hear me loud and clear with my voice a bit.
Yeah, it was perfect. Thank you, Celine. Thank you
Thanks.
very much for presenting these very insightful and practical recommendations. I'm just amazed to see how easily adaptable these ideas are to all the regions and all the sectors. So it's a very good document, and I really encourage you to consult it and read it carefully because it's a very good. It's quite short, a lot of different ideas in there. So really, I advise you to read it. And I want to say on behalf of FIA and on behalf of FIA Future Now, I want to express our sincere appreciation for your presence today. ETUC's work on engaging young people in trade unions started before ours, and seeing the progress you've made is both inspiring and motivating for our future efforts. So thank you again. Thank you very much. So if you have questions for Celine, it will be for the end. So now that we've heard about the ETUC recommendation, we will move to the second part of today's event, the FIA Future Now panel, which I'm honored to be moderating. Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Camille Richards. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a policy officer at FIA, and part of my role is to coordinate our vibrant young members group, FIA Future Now. And the goal of today's panel is to explore how the ETUC recommendation can be applied within performance unions. And the fact is that several FIA members have already launched initiatives aligning with this recommendation. And today what I want to do is showcase these good practices and these works. So I'm delighted to introduce you to our young panelists. You can already start seeing them around me now. They are active members of FIA Future Now, and we will spend the next 1 hour and 20 minutes to share their insights and experiences. So to start, I will ask each of you to briefly introduce themselves. You can tell us your name, your age, because this is a young members event, your profession, country, and unions, and also I'd love to hear how old you were when you joined your union, and what motivated you to do so. So Ada, would you like to go next first?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Ada Chełmińska. I'm 30 years old, and I'm an actor in the film and voice acting industry. I'm representing Polish Actors Union, ZZAP, which I joined in March 2023 during my fall year of drama school, which is the earliest possible time for young actors in Poland to do so. I was 27 at the time, and what mostly motivated me, besides considering this the right thing to do, was feeling quite green about how things work in the industry after drama school, because unfortunately no one was teaching us how these things work while we were studying. So I wanted to learn and contribute for, trade unions, same as acting as a team effort.
Thank you, Ada. Ben?
Hello, everyone. My name is Benjamin Finch. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm here today representing Equity UK. Should say right now that any views expressed by me are not necessarily the views of Equity UK. I'm here as an individual, but I currently sit on the Young Members Committee. I'm 24 years old, and I joined Equity when I was 21. And yeah, similar reasons for joining, really. It felt important and like the right thing to do to be a part of the union. I remember reading in a book written by an actor called Andy Nyman that if you, oh God, what he said, yes, if you aren't a member of a union, you're just kind of enjoying the benefits that the paying members have worked for, and that didn't feel fair to me. But I've also always been interested in politics and political strategy, and it felt like a good way to kind of bring those two different passions together by joining the union. So that's me. I think I've answered all of your questions. I live in England, in the UK.
Thank you, Ben. Marian?
Kia ora koutou katoa, I'm Marian Infante. I am based here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm Makapampangan Filipino, my pronouns are she, her. I've recently just turned 30, so I have 5 more years to stay in FIA Future Now. I am an actor, writer and producer, and I am one of the executive board member for Equity New Zealand. And I think similarly to the comments that Ada and Ben had already expressed, I think one of the main reasons that I became involved in unionism, or specifically Equity New Zealand, is because I passionately really care about being a good worker and being a good performer. And I know the only way to do that is to have a good understanding of what my safety net is, what is protecting my rights, and how I can best show up with my best practices in, on set or on stage. And to do that is to actually understand what the industry entails, and that starts from contracts to negotiations to conversation at a policy level. So it's been a real privilege to get to know the industry from all the sides, really. So that's me.
Thank you, Marian. Caden?
Hello, my name is Kaden Nelson. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm a stage manager in the United States of America through Actors Equity Association, or AEA, or Equity. I'm also an elected member of the Equity National Council. Actors Equity Association represents both actors in live performance and stage managers. I first worked a union job when I was 23, then finally realized the benefits of joining and joined myself as a member when I was 27. So I've been a member for 8 years. I'm just at the top end of the 35 age here, so somehow I feel old. I wanted to join really because of the benefits around receiving a salary for my work and earning health insurance. In the United States, when you join Actors Equity, you are no longer permitted to do non-union work. So I was really nervous to commit to joining because I was worried, what if I change my mind? What if I want to do other work? And then the more experience I got, I realized that I could not afford to do the non-union work, that the only work that I could accept was union, because the other work wasn't even paying me enough to cover my transportation to and from those jobs. As soon as I realized that, I joined the union, and it was absolutely the right decision for me. And I've realized all the other benefits since then.
Thank you, Caden. Londiwe?
Hello, everyone. My name is Londiwe Shange. I am from South Africa, and I am with the South African Guild of Actors, which is the longest running guild for performers in the country. And yeah, I joined the guild when I was 25 years old. Right now I'm 31. So like Marianne, I have a few years left with FFN. And it has been an absolute honor to be amongst leaders who are young and just so vibrant and passionate about transforming the industry. When I joined the guild, one of the main reasons was because I live in a province or state called KwaZulu-Natal. In short, it is KZN. And at the time, there were different situations of unethical agents for performers in the region, and there was not enough representation for performers in the region. And when I decided to join, I wanted to just shed the light for other actors, for them to know their rights in terms of contracts, agents, the basics of the industry, because that was the main issue. A lot of actors didn't understand how contracts work when you go onto a set. A lot of actors were exploitation when they would go on a set or a theater production. Others were not getting paid, and those who were getting paid, they were not getting paid fairly. And one of the main issues as well was just auditions. When you go into the audition room, a lot of people didn't get the fair treatment. And that is why I wanted to just join. I wanted to share knowledge. I wanted to have the knowledge that I can share with the rest of my colleagues. And I can't remember, what was your other question, Camille?
I think you answered them. The age you had when you said you were 21 when you joined the union.
25.
So yeah,
25, yes.
sorry. So yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Landry, and thank you to you all for introducing yourselves. My first question, and this is a reference to the second recommendation from the ETUC, which is about reaching out to young people. And among these, in this chapter, one of the sub-recommendation is to visit schools and universities to engage students even before they enter the workforce. And two of our panelists today represent unions doing just that, and that's Kaden from American Equity and Ada from ZZNP in Poland. So I'll start with Kaden. American Equity has a long-running school visit program. Can you explain us how this program works, and also tell us who leads the visits, because I think it's interesting, and maybe also what are the messages that resonate the most with the students?
Of course. So Equity does have quite an extensive student outreach program that is primarily member-led and organized through union member volunteers. I was a leader of that program for a few years, and now there's a team of 3 people, and then I still do presentations sometimes. So I've been very involved in this program. Schools or universities can request presentations to take place in person or on Zoom and are between 1 to 2 hours in length. I'll start with some overall data about the program over this last year to give you an idea of the scope of it, and then talk a bit about the different messages and communication of the structure of the program and what has worked well for us. So for the last academic year, in 2024 through 2025, from August through May, the team did 45 presentations. 32 were on Zoom, 4 were at Equity offices, and 9 were at university campuses around the country where the presenters went to the schools. And with those 45 presentations, we are estimating that we have reached 1,300 potential future members just in that year. So we're quite busy. Equity does employ a staff member whose job title is Director of Education and Member Value, and he provides some administrative support, but the outreach program is primarily run by member volunteers who put in a lot of work. There are currently 3 member leaders who lead trainings for and coordinate presenters and program materials, and also present themselves on occasion, as well as a team of member presenters who attend an annual training on Zoom, then can sign up for presentations that work well with their schedules. As I've said, I've served in both of those positions, so seen the program from both perspectives. Over the last academic year, there were approximately 30 members who were regular presenters And they usually work in a team of 2 so that no one person has to present alone. And they can interact with each other and provide different perspectives. I mentioned that the leaders also give presentations, and I think that works really to contribute to the program's success, because it means that we as leaders can see what is working, what doesn't work, what questions students have, and then make the program better and tailor it accordingly from there. We do customize each presentation, but make sure we touch on 4 main topics. Those topics we refer to as modules. And they are, the first one is Equity 101, which is about unionism, history, the governance of actors' equity. The second one is about how to join, not only, well, how to join, when to join, how to make that decision. That's a big question a lot of people have. The third is membership rights, benefits, responsibilities, and involvement. And finally, the last module is about working equity, working on contract support, and what resources you have when you are on the job. Presenters have a script outline that they can access on Google Drive that also contains suggestions for prompts to engage the students through the conversation. Something that's really important is that the union members are talking to and with students instead of talking at them. We don't want it to feel like another lecture in their classes. We want it to be a place where they can ask questions. So when students request presentations, they fill out a brief form, or when schools request them, that indicate primary areas of interest. For example, theater students in their first year of university study will have different questions than graduate level students who are taking a trip to New York City to audition for casting directors. So the presenters will have that information ahead of time. And that also lets us tailor the presenters for each group. For example, pairing stage managers with stage managers. And while, as I mentioned, the presenters do include information from each of those 4 basic modules, the type of information that resonates most really depends on the student group. And we have worked hard to ensure that our presenters can be proactive in that regard. We start every presentation by asking the students what they are interested in and what they are excited to hear about. It not only lets us know what they want to hear, but also hear what kind of knowledge the students might already have, what topics to cover more in depth, and also consider if there's any misinformation they've received that could be addressed to make sure that they have accurate, up-to-date information. We're also always looking to streamline how we explain complicated topics like union solidarity or member responsibilities. We don't want them to feel bogged, like overburdened with information. We want it to feel accessible to them. To that end, we've also incorporated a PowerPoint presentation to accompany the verbal presentation and share a supplemental resource document with each class afterwards, so that students can pay attention and know that they'll get all the notes later on. So there's a lot of information in each presentation, and this has even, I think, been a lot of information that I've shared with you here. But ultimately, with the outreach program, we've found it really meaningful to set our presenters up for success by including all the information online in a shared drive that they can access, that they also know is up to date all the time, and also ultimately find it meaningful to help students make a connection to the union early on, even if they don't have all of the information right away. A lot of people think that being a member of equity is only for people who are experienced or people who have a certain level of talent. And really, we want students to know that union benefits should be for everyone, and all labor should have benefits and a paycheck for it. So we're hoping that through these presentations, students can know that working in the arts can be something they're passionate about and something that is actual employment for them. And with the number of students that we've reached, it seems like that is successful. So I'm happy to answer questions later as they come up.
Thank you, Kaden. This is a really well-oiled program. It clearly is I don't know since when the program exists, but clearly it must be for a long time. But you can see that everything is think about every aspect of it, and it's working very well. I will now have a question for Ada, because ZZAP is currently developing a very similar initiative. And I'd like to know, Ada, what sparkled this idea and what stage is it now, this initiative? Where are you at? Yeah, please.
Thank you, Camille. And also to start with, thank you, Kaden. This is utterly inspiring and, well, a lot. Like, I don't think I'm gonna speak as long as you. So it's going to be a little bit more brief. But anyway, the main reason to spark the idea was the demand from young actors who, as we said, often feel lost about the reality of industry and how to start their careers without any stumbles, because we all know young performers are prone to all forms of deceit, let's say, like false casting calls or low wages. So we still have to establish the structure of the program. But what I can share with you now is that in 2020, ZZAP organized the first online meeting for acting students in Poland. And then 2 years later, in 2022, the ZZAP Awards at the annual Polish Theatre Schools Festival in Łódź was founded. And then in April 2025, the National Academy of Theatre Arts in Wrocław, SAT Wrocław, my alma mater, by the way, invited our union for an industry event aimed at students called AST Start, AST Graduates on the Marketplace, discussions and consultations on career perspectives, personal brand development, and first steps into the industry. And we were represented by the chairman of our union, Robert Gulaczek, and our union managers, Karolina Wiechacz and Jowita Tenderowicz. So beside the Q&A session, students who were soon to be graduates could join our union on the spot. And for now, that's it.
Thank you, Ava. And I think you kind of answered my follow-up question, but my question is very simple one. It was, does these visits to school, does their work? Do you see people joining the union, students joining the union after school visits? Very simple question.
Well, I've heard that several students actually signed up on the spot during this Wrocław event. So I think that it works, but also social media, I don't want to, go ahead with our other subject. But yeah, it actually works, and we can see the rising number in young members to join.
I think it works as well. I have heard of students who talk later about how they saw presentations and then joined later on. American Equity does not have a student class of membership as some other unions do, and so usually after these presentations, people don't join right away. They graduate and then join when they're ready to work in professional theater. But I did learn that our current Equity has 50,000 members. We're a very large union, and the current members in good standing joined on average at age 29, but out under the age of 35. So in the same age range where we are, that's 26 of our membership, and then 26% of our membership, and then 14% of membership is under the age of 30. So I think we're seeing that a lot of people who maybe aren't joining right away, but that in the 5 or 10 years after school really do go on to join, and that's now a large percentage of our membership. So I think that just sows a lot of seeds for people later on.
Thank you, Kaden, and thank you, Ada. I will continue with a different topic, which Ada a little bit hinted on. It's communication. So Celine highlighted during a presentation that adopting a youth-friendly communication is key for engaging young people. Could each of you share a successful youth-friendly communication initiative from your union or maybe an event, and explain why this initiative you think worked? Ada?
Right, because I've already started this topic a bit.
Exactly.
So every time a new member joins our union, the introductory picture of them holding our banner is uploaded on the ZZAP Instagram. Most of the time, it's an individual post with a welcome message, and such personalized approach makes new members eager to engage. For starters, they obviously share the picture on social media, so their audience can too get to know ZZAP this way. And I've heard every now and then that people truly wait for the welcome pictures to be uploaded so they can share them. And actually, our union managers have a waiting list, which is for at least as long as I've joined the union, which was more than 2.5 years ago. And I too waited for my picture to be uploaded, obviously. So it's safe to say that it has started to be considered cool to have the ZZAP picture of yourself online.
Well, cool is good. Huh? Ben?
Yeah, it was a tricky question because actually I think I'll be honest and say that we've really struggled. And Ada, what you were saying there about the personalized approach and especially going on social media, I think is absolutely something that we should be taking forward because I'll talk about this a bit more later, but our committee is kind of elected every 2 years. So we have 2-year terms. And on the last term, I was part of the committee and we were very kind of events heavy. We wanted to have lots of in-person events that people could come to, and they didn't come because I think post-COVID, there's a big culture about staying indoors. People, especially young people, find it harder to get out. I think there's a whole load of kind of mental and social health issues that we can talk about in a different webinar. But our social media engagement has been really positive. When we've had conferences, where obviously we're posting onto our Instagram stories, we're kind of explaining what we're doing. I'm kind of a bit phobic of the term youth friendly, which I know probably doesn't suit me so well to this conversation, but I think there's a really, we can't patronize young people, right? And it's not about kind of talking to them as young people. It's just about making sure that they understand what we're doing and what we're saying. And social media is a really good way to democratize that work. So yeah, I think I would say that our social media outreach and kind of making sure that that's consistent and reliable has probably been our best tool over the last few years.
Thank you, Ben. And I believe the youth committee has its own Instagram account, right? It's not only
Oh
Equity.
yeah. Equity YMC, hit us up.
Thank you, Ben. Marian, would you like to be next?
Yes, and mine is taking the most of my 3-minute slot here, Camille. So for Equity New Zealand, we are, for context, we are a very small union. We have approximately just over 1,000 members as a whole. So that gives you context of why my youth committee is beautiful. One of our youth-friendly initiatives that has really worked well in our unions, led by our youth committee, is curating and running our union youth festival. It's kind of similar to Actors Equity Association that Caden shared, but the difference I would say is that it's outside of like an institution environment and more in a casual setting. We've run this for 2 years now, and it's been backed by our board members and organized with and supported by our amazing union staff, where we invite union industry emerging and established professionals to come and talk to our youth in a panel like this with certain topics like what it means to be a maker and a slasher, like being an actor slash writer slash stage manager slash like slasher. A panel about, the relationship between an agent and an actor, talking to casting directors, discussing what it means to sustain a career, funding, where does money come from, how to bring creative ideas to life and secure funding, making, what drives a maker from like spoken word to screen work. And we also run sessions on topics like what it means to be a young working actor. We're talking financing as a contractor, and also we do sessions around talking about governance, Equity New Zealand's history, and collaborating with other organizations like our Young Workers Resource Centre here in Aotearoa. So other long-term things that have also worked for us outside of that beautiful 2-day festival event where everyone just has a moment to see each other, kind of like to what you're saying, Ben, to make it a safe space. Not necessarily, it is a youth festival bannered event, but it is specifically to encourage and empower youth to show up as performers and as workers. So yeah, other long-term things that have also helped us stay connected and continue growing our committee and our rapport, I guess, with one another are things like having a dedicated Instagram page. Our committee has a WhatsApp group, and that's something we're continuing to explore as initiatives that basically gather our youths together, like our social hangouts, such as maybe movie nights and theatre nights. We've done, I believe, one movie night together. And it might seem like really simple activities, but they've been really powerful in bringing young members together, as I know Caden would have experience in this, having done so for many, many years now. In an industry like the performing arts, where people often feel like they don't have a single workplace or consistent colleagues, having a place where we can connect with each other who share same experiences is hugely valuable. The WhatsApp group, for example, allows for quick informal communication with the committee members, and it's often the first point of contact for someone dipping their toe into union life. And for some of us, it's a good space, a safe space for us to remind and encourage each other to attend the protests that are happening in our area. Events like the movie nights or the youth festival create a safe space, and it's a welcoming entry point. And they're not always directly about unionism, but they act as a stepping stone. So people come for the community and the fun aspect of it, and naturally they learn more about what a union does and why it matters and why their community is really important. And what makes this approach really successful is that it's built on encouragement rather than pressure. Equity New Zealand has been really good at using the carrot instead of the stick. This is what one of our committee members shared. Instead of telling young people what they should and shouldn't be doing, the union provides something of value, whether that's a workshop that they can attend for free for being a member that builds on your skills, a festival that showcases your creativity and connects you with industry professionals, a social event that gives you a sense of belonging. And I think that one's really, really important. These positive experiences become the hook for us, and they draw people in the door. And once they're in, they begin to see like a bigger picture of what solidarity means and what collective power actually means. And for me, the most meaningful impact of these initiatives is how they foster genuine community. And I found that equity events are often the only time when performing arts workers actually come together in a room like that. And you feel a special energy, kind of similar to attending, FIA Future Now events. Everyone's like-minded, everyone's passionate, and you leave feeling a bit more connected, not just nationally, but in this context, globally. So the whole reason I felt energized to establish our youth committee in New Zealand here was after I joined FIA in 2022 to establish FIA Future Now. If it's something that can happen on a global level, why not in our small but mighty union of 1,000-something members? And immediately I came back to New Zealand, and 2023 Equity New Zealand Youth Committee was born. It became a place where inspiration became infectious, networking was happening naturally, and like young people felt seen, supported, and valued. And I also want to highlight the fact that our wonderful Equity New Zealand staff has also enabled and encouraged our youth committee members to attend New Zealand Council Trade of Union conferences, and that's specifically for young delegates. So it's called Stand Up Conference, and it's a youth-friendly communication at a national level targeting folks in union who's already interested in advocacy and unionism. And being in that space surrounded by other unions of all ages and seeing the values echoed by politicians and leaders was incredibly empowering for the committee members who attended. And those committee members, because I think about 4 of them or 5 of them attended this year, they came back into our youth committee of 26 and was like fizzing with energy. So it's infectious, and it continues to inform the rest of us on what it means to participate in a space of leadership and in a space of understanding that the power actually lies with in a context of this is a room where people are working for people and with people. So yeah.
Thank you, Marianne. I think what you're saying about this feeling of community is indeed very important, because when you're an actor, you sometimes you lack this feeling of being part of a community. So thank you. Caden, can you tell us about your example?
Of course. So I think that's something that equity in America well that works to engage young members is through different types of text-based communication. So many of us are on our cell phones almost constantly, and finding ways of providing small amounts of information that people can digest at one time in ways that go directly to them has been a tool that I see working well. One way this happens is we engage in what's called text banking, or sending text messages from volunteers to members, much as the same way as when many political candidates reach out to people, less annoying. So we don't use it for everything, but for specific campaigns, perhaps then contract negotiation that needs a lot of member support, or upcoming political action the union is involved in, or events like the Labor Day parade, like come out and join us and we'll give you a union t-shirt and march with us. And the team uses specific apps that allow member volunteers to log into the platform and have access to short scripts that they can send to people without having that person's contact information. So it keeps it confidential, but feel more like a personal approach instead of just another email newsletter that we get so many of. And with texting around specific campaigns for the people who are really involved and want to be more of an active part of making things better, we'll also coordinate group text threads for the people who are part of what's called the action team. That can be helpful to feel like they're all part of something, like what Marianne was saying, because then you'll be able to be in a thread with other members who are talking about, oh, I've reached out to this, oh, I'll be in this place on this day, and it feels less isolating. And then similar though, with a little bit different, with emails, I know that sometimes people who get emails with a lot of information, that can feel really overwhelming, but people do want to hear from the union in ways that something that's shorter or more accessible can feel more direct. So I've seen Equity use similar strategies in emails around short amounts of information that link to more information if they want more. A few years ago, a newsletter called Equity Weekly, which comes out every Wednesday and is different from other emails because it contains short summaries of what's been happening, about one sentence each, and then has links for more information if people want to read more. Feeling like here is this whole email with all of this information, and it's so long that no one can get through it. Those Equity Weekly emails also include links to in-person events or online events that are happening that week, so people can be reminded of ways to connect with other members. And they'll include photos at the bottom from member events around the country, or teams who are participating in negotiations. So it gives a personal face to the union, instead of people feeling like the union is this outside thing that they aren't really a part of. And I think the common thing that all of that has together is really ways that Equity can get information to people proactively and in ways that don't feel too overwhelming. With the text messages or the newsletter that comes at a specific time, people can rely on that subscription, but also know that it doesn't have to feel overwhelming for them to be a part of the union. And I've seen those things working really with people, especially since we're bombarded by so much information from all sides, just in being at work in the country in general. And this has been a helpful way of managing that.
Thank you, Kaden. Very interesting. Landiwe?
So with us, something that has resonated really well with young people is visiting them at universities. We have quite a few universities in South Africa that have drama, for example. So it is a great opportunity for us to go to the students who are in their second year and their third year, and sometimes possibly fourth year of studies. And what's been really interesting is how they crave to see us there. They want to see the EXCO members there. They want to interact, because a lot of the times the students, they don't have a lot of knowledge on the language that is used by the guild or the union because obviously the language that we use, it's about governance, policy, and when we put messaging out on social media, sometimes if you see a word such as collective bargaining and you don't really understand what it is, you might think that it's language that is not associated with you. And then when we get there, we go to the universities and we start breaking each terminology down, or if someone has a question and then they understand that, hang on, I thought that this had nothing to do with me, but it has everything to do with me. Then for them, you are able to understand the processes of the organization as a whole. So what happens with students is, because normally the people that would go to the universities, it would be myself or any one of the other EXCO members within the union, but mostly it's the younger people within the union, or rather the young people within the EXCO. We will go to the universities and we start speaking to young people as young people, and also we tell them our personal stories. I think that's really been such a game changer when we tell young people about our journey and how we began as our journey as activists and wanting transformation in the industry, because I feel like when we can personalize something, or we can share a story that is really meaningful, people understand the whole purpose of the union a bit more. Because if we're just throwing out words and giving people a lot of information, it just floats. But if there's a personal journey there, then people can understand and relate more, because obviously they are going to tell you that I actually experienced something on a set last week, and it was on a student form, for example. So already that level of closeness, that bonding is created. And most of the time when we leave the schools, I've seen it whereby maybe I leave an institution, 2 or 3 days later, I see that 3 students have applied and they want to join the union, and they're very intentional about that. And another aspect to it is we go back to the same schools. We expand our network, but we always go back to schools. We don't go once, we will go at least twice or 3 times in the space of 3 years. In fact, if a school calls us back and if the school says, we would like you to come back this year, and if maybe you can now share more information, maybe on sexual harassment, for example. This is a great opportunity for us to now bring on our sister partners, and we say, okay, we have information on sexual harassment, and we can also bring on another expert. And this way, they're able to see that as a guild, we're not just a guild alone, but we have other affiliations or other organizations that we work with, that we are affiliated with, that can assist the students. I remember it was this year, at the beginning of this year, where I went to a film school, a prestigious film school, and the students asked me, what if I have a problem with a production within the institution? Do I tell the institution, or can I come to you guys as the organization, and can you guys fight for my rights as a student within the institution? And it was the first time I received a question like that. And I went back to EXCO and I said, how do I navigate this question? Because the institution obviously said, they were being political with their answer. And the EXCO said, yes, absolutely, we can step in and fight for that student actor. So that student actor felt like there was someone outside of the walls of the institution that can fight for their own rights, as opposed to having to speak to their lecturer who might not be able to do much for them. So that changes or it shifts the dynamic, between the students and ourselves, because the students become closer to we are now forming a different type of relationship, whereby yes, we're speaking policy and governance, but also now there is that level of understanding with each other, that we are not speaking because we are part of an organization. We really understand your issues. We are on the ground with you. And I think that's been very, very important for us as a guild, to make sure that young people understand that we share the same struggles. We are part of this guild because we were there at the beginning of our careers, where we were struggling, and the same issues that you are facing now, we faced them before, and we can help you navigate these issues a little bit more easier. And that's when the school visits come in. And of course, we also host workshops, and these workshops are quite interactive as well. So they will range from voiceover workshops, we have acting workshops, but with the acting workshops, sometimes they're more specialized. So you find that we have a workshop, for example, called maybe it's for stunts. How do you perform stunts? We have prop handling, gun handling, more specific workshops related with acting. And these are workshops that are fun. So if you're speaking about stunts, already people want to come and they want to interact, they want to be part of that experience. You're speaking about something that they want to venture into, stunt work, and possibly also just network with some of the facilitators. I think that's also a huge drawing card for us. The facilitators that we utilize are facilitators that are professionals in the industry, well-recognized professionals, facilitators who've been in the industry for a very long time, so they're very well respected. And a lot of young performers, they really want to network. They really want to interact with these individuals. And of course, once you get someone to come to one workshop, you already have the idea of, okay, now I can just speak to them about joining the organization, so that they don't have to pay for the next workshop, that comes through. Because obviously, if you're not a member, you have to pay. And if you are a member, you don't have to pay for some of these workshops. So that is a bonus for us, and some of the benefits that we offer the young people as well, such as the cinema discounts, theater discounts. If you want to go to the cinema, you have a discount there. And one of my personal favorites, I'm going to be speaking on it soon, like everyone else has mentioned, is social media. We utilize social media quite a lot. And that journey for us has been interesting, and I'll speak on it more a little bit later. But really, we've had quite a huge response on social media, with young people interacting with our content, and how we've driven that has been a very wonderful, but also an interesting journey to observe. So yeah, I hope that outlines a lot of the information that we give out as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Londiwe. Thank you to you all. I think these were all a good example of communication initiatives aimed at young members, but not only. And I think what's encouraging is that most of these initiatives are quite easy to implement and mostly quite cheap to implement, which is always a good thing for a union. So I think it's something to keep in mind. And now to go beyond communication, we've also heard from Celine that young people engagement also depends on the creation of formal youth structures within union. And these structures they ensure that young members have a seat at the table and they have a way to make their voices heard, so they're extremely important. And two of our panelists today represent unions at very different stage in the process of creating their young members committee or young members structure. I will first go to Ben. Equity UK has a long-standing youth structure. Can you explain us how the structure is organized and what role does it play within the union?
I can indeed. I would also like to say, I think we need to be really careful with the timekeeping in this conversation, because there's so much really useful information that we can all share. And my speaking for myself, my intellectual bandwidth is actually quite low. I think in the interest of expediency and long-term strategy, we need to be really clear and concise in how we share these ideas. But I would love to talk about equities structures. I'll start off with the members, because obviously you can't join any of these structures without being a member. So there are 3 ways you can get involved with the union in the UK: your branches, your networks, and your committees. And I'm aware a lot of this might cross over, but I'm just going to kind of go play by play. Your branch is connected to your local area. You're not obliged to join in, but branches, as the kind of traditional means of getting involved with the union, they have the power to submit motions, which are basically recommendations on policy, to the council. And then the council are a kind of an elected set of members who give the sign off basically to that policy. The most kind of exciting for me way of getting involved with the union is the networks. Networks are kind of like member devised groups that are much more informal. They don't have it in their power or in their gift to submit suggestions on policy, but they can lobby, and by God, they do lobby. But they also provide a means for people to get involved on environmental issues. Like, you wouldn't have like an environmental committee or an environmental branch, so you have an environmental network, or as we call it, Equity for a Green New Deal. And that's very proactive, and that's I think, as I say, that's one of the more kind of dynamic ways of getting involved. I'm here representing a committee. Committees are divided into equalities committees, which are your LGBTQ+, your women's committees, your race committees, your young members committees. And then you also have industrial committees. So you have stage, screen, variety, stage managers, and directors and designers. Committees also have it in their power to submit suggestions for policy. Committees, speaking for mine, we meet every kind of couple of months. It's paid for by the union, which is amazing. They pay for us to get into a room together, and we just kind of talk about what's going on in the broader industry, what kind of campaigns we might like to pursue, what kind of things we might want to kind of initiate either online. We basically get to strategize for 3 hours. And it obviously, yeah, there's young people being given a seat at the table, but it's I don't know, nothing's really youth proofed. Like, we kind of engage with the union as much as we want to. Last year, for example, we took a motion to conference. The year before, we didn't. So there's no hand holding. They just kind of let you move through things and engage with things as you want to engage with them. And I think that kind of lack of condescension is the thing that really makes us feel empowered to do what we want, whether it is on social media or whether it is, you know, organizing events or what have you. That's kind of everything I could say about the structure. If anyone has any questions at the Q&A, then feel free to fire away, but I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you, Ben. Marianne, Equity New Zealand, as you told us, recently created its Young Members Committee. Can you describe the structure and share some of the lessons you've learned so far, because this is a new work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been also quite wonderful hearing Ben's perspective as well, coming from a union that's a lot bigger than us. So I think this is a great comparison as well in terms of journey. But yes, we are still very early in creating our own formal structure. Basically, for us, is you have to be a member of the union. As a member, then you can be a part of the committee. And we're only just really learning about, like, you know, putting motions forward. We're yet to formalize our structure. I'm a part of the board, so that gives us a lot of progression in terms of being able to communicate directly between our committee and to the board. But in terms of the 26 union members that are a part of our youth committee, we all kind of take turns being available and present for all the meetings, because all of our union mahi or work is youth led, so our youth members led. And for that, we all take turns sort of missing events, because We're all either booked on jobs, busy rehearsing on stage, or keeping down hospitality job, and we're all just celebrating each other being working people. But when we did establish our committee in 2023 after the FIA Future Now establishment, we collectively came together to create a vision and mission statement. And this sort of helped us organize ourselves in a structured manner. So our vision statement is an Aotearoa which supports young performing artists to have a sustainable and healthy career. And our mission statement under that is that the Equity New Zealand Youth Committee builds and represents a community of youth artists that feel empowered within the wider performing arts industry. We provide support, opportunities, and resources that allow young artists to build sustainable careers, such as workshops, ongoing training, and mentorships. And we empower youth to have a voice to be heard within our industry and advocate for their safety and rights to be respected and upheld. And creating these statements is probably the most formal we have ever gotten. Because we are still continuing to learn how to even engage within, with each other in a committee sort of format, but it has been a game-changing structure for us to get organized. And personally, being part of the equity board, sort of passing down the knowledge from the board down to the committee, has, being a part of that decision-making table, has been quite important because, representation is very much the thing that provides the most impact. And I think, sort of bouncing off what Ben is saying of not having a specific youth condescension approach, I think for us, because we don't have that many members and our union is very much still held, the legacies of our union is still very much held from people who were above the age of 35, it became a very obvious sort of role that we needed to take up to balance the power dynamic that majority of the rooms, of how the majority of the rooms were organized. Oftentimes I would go to a lot of these, meetings and events, and I will visibly be either one, the only person of color, or two, the only, one of the youngest people in the room. So it became a clear goal for us to make that happen. And that said, obviously that's not without any challenges. We're still, and it's awesome that we're going to be talking about mentoring soon, but we still need to work on our mentorship level as well, because a lot of the rules around the world is obviously very different within the New Zealand context, the New Zealand, the Māori culture, the laws and rules are very different in this part of the world. So it's good for us to contextualize it in a way that we will actually find useful. But similar to what people have already said, having the youth structure having the direct connection from institutions and having that conversation that's less jargonized is really, really important for us. But now that I have a baby, I think I've come to realization that young people really do learn by observing and absorbing. So just modeling good practice and what good unionism look like from me, that's become kind of my job as someone who's been a part of the board, modeling and just speaking to the youth committee about my experiences as a board member has been helpful for other people. And at the same time, again, going with the baby lessons, when the youth is starved of opportunities, they will learn to cry and ask for what they need. And they're very good at knowing what they need. So I think giving them the opportunity to be seen in those rooms and creating a specific space for them to be able to do that is incredibly important to also help build their confidence to feel like they can participate in this level. So yeah.
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you, Ben. I will continue because we are short in time with a different topic, which is young members being elected in union positions. Actually, each of you has taken that step and has been chosen for a specific role within the union. Can you just first tell us what this position is, what position do you currently hold, and how you get there, and also what do you think were the factors that help you get there? And I will ask each of you to remain within the allocated time because I want to make sure that we have time for the question after. Ada?
Right. So to start with, I just want to share that our Polish union has 1,800 members for now. and it's almost 50-50 that there are actors, freelance actors, and actors working full-time in theaters. So just to start, because I currently hold the position on the Independent Actors Section Board. And like I said, with growing numbers of actors joining our union, especially freelance actors, our main board decided that there's need for additional management, so to speak. So in December 2024, just last December, the online elections were held. And in order to candidate, each of us had to prepare a video where we were presenting ourselves, stating our aims and visions. And not to be courteous, but I believe that being part of FIA Future Now helped me on my way to be elected, because I was sharing my experiences about European Social Dialogue Academy at ETUC in February and March last year. Then I attended the Equity Conference in Birmingham in May. And I can only presume that all in all, other actors considered me qualified for the job and trustworthy enough to be elected.
Thank you, Ada. So I think we've lost Ben, so maybe he'll join in a little bit. Probably there was something wrong there. Marian, can you tell us how you got to your position?
Honestly, I'm going to keep it super quick. The Equity New Zealand president, Jennifer Ward-Leland, saw something special in me, and I was quite busy working in the Asian arts sector as a leader or as an emerging producer at the time. And she nudged me and pulled me aside. And she was like, "Do you want me to nominate you so we can have someone like yourself on the board?" And at the time I was like, I don't think I'm qualified. I don't think, I have that in me. And she was just like, "Yes, you do. Come be a part of it. Learn unionism from the inside." She encouraged me. She empowered me. She instilled, basically, she held my hand. She was the reason I went to the FIA event in 2022. And I'm so glad she did. And it was because of her belief in lifting me up that I'm still here. And I've been elected for 3 terms now. And yay, I think it's worked out.
Clearly. Kaden?
Hello, so I am the Central Stage Manager Counselor at Actors Equity and was elected in 2019. The person who had been serving in the seat before me was unable to complete his term, so there was a vacancy for less than a year. And at that time, I had just been getting involved with some of Equity's committees and loved it. So when I heard about the vacancy, I ran for election and I won. At that time, some current counselors were unhappy that I won because they felt that I was too new to governance and too young, and a couple of them told me so. But I was young and inexperienced, but also had things to offer, and so I worked really hard to figure out how to prove them wrong and how to make a difference. And I did a lot of research. And after that interim term concluded, I ran for and was elected for a full term, and was just recently elected for my second. So I've really continued on learning and been really grateful for that. And also within that role since then have been elected to additional leadership positions within council on working groups and committees.
Congrats. Londiway?
I think my story is similar to Marianne. I was just an actress who was auditioning a lot, and I was struggling with finding, like I mentioned earlier, an ethical agent within my region or province. And I started to be vocal about it on social media. I was very, very vocal. I was challenging unethical agents left, right, and center. I was called all sorts of names, and I just didn't care about that. And I remember reaching out to the South African Guild of Actors. This is back in 2019, when I reached out to the chairman and Jack Devanarian, and I said, "Hi, sir, I am an actress in this particular region, and I would like to know what can SAGA do, or the South African Guild of Actors do, to help us out here. We have this issue and I am not sure what we can do. I don't know where to go." And he sent me some messages. He responded, And he said, this is my email address. Just send me the evidence, send me proof. And I was very adamant on making sure that I was sending him everything. And then one day, he and Colin Duval Smith, they gave me a call and they said, look, we're going to be coming down to KZN, KwaZulu-Natal, and we want to do something there. We want to get a bunch of actors together and make sure that, you know, information goes out. Can you galvanize people? Can you bring people together? I said, sure, I'll do that happily. And I sort of did something there, and it was something small, and it was successful though. And the next time they called me, they said, we want to come there. We want something bigger, something similar to the first time. Now we want it bigger. People need to know. We need panelists. We need these people that can speak to emerging actors. And they said, we need you to put that group together. And I said, sure, I'll do it. On that day, Colin Duval Smith, who became my mentor, said to me, we want to nominate you to be in the Exco. I didn't even know what that meant. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. It sounded really cool. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds cool. I don't know what is going on, but it sounds cool. I want to be a part of that. If it means that at least I'll get to lead in the front lines and I'll be a part of a community as opposed to being isolated. And from there, that's where my journey began. I was nominated into the executive committee. Colin and Jack vouched for me without really knowing much anything about me, except for the fact that I was just this tiny girl who was always shouting on social media. And yeah, that's where my journey began. And that was in 2020, and it's 2025. And I've also been re-elected, I think, twice or three times now. So I'm very grateful for where I am right now. Yeah.
Thank you, Londiwe. Thank you to you all. My next question, and it's going to be my last question before the final round of remarks, is with regard to mentoring. So several of you mentioned mentoring before, because the thing is, no one becomes a strong unions leader on their own. And whether it's through formal program or just through informal guidance, like several of you, mentoring can really help build the confidence and develop the skills of young members. Londiwe and Caden, you've both benefited from mentoring, both informally within your union, just like Marian described and Londiwe described with Carlin, but also through the FIA Future Now mentoring program. Can you briefly share with us your experiences of mentoring and how these have influences your journey within your union? Caden?
All right, so off of what I just said, actually good connection. When I was first elected to council, I mentioned that some people thought I was too young and inexperienced. And I could not have learned what I learned without the people who did mentor me and who did help me. There were several counselors who really supported me and even have since become close friends. In the beginning, when agendas came out for meetings, we would get on Zoom together and look at them in advance and talk through the procedural expectations. They would say, so it looks like there might be a motion that's introduced for this. This is how it might be amended. This is how we'll vote on it. Not telling me how to vote, but this is literally how people will vote. It will be a form online, or you will speak up and say whether you agree or disagree. And all of that really helped me understand how the information on the agenda translated to what would happen in the meeting. So feel like I could research and prepare to be informed ahead of time. And they also let me ask them so many questions in addition to teaching me how to find the information I was looking for so that I could learn from what had worked for them. And that really, really made a difference for me in figuring out how to take the ideas that were in my head and figure out how to make them things that could actually improve our contracts. And really, really was meaningful to me. And then I've also participated in mentoring through FIA Future Now that I've found valuable in different reasons. I've met with Scott Bellis, who's the council president of Canadian, and Yannick Rosenwald, a member of the GDBA in Germany, and at least was on this call earlier, hopefully still. We had Zoom meetings several times over a year, and I think we were only required to meet once a quarter, but actually met quite a few more times because we found it so interesting and helpful. The thing that was most meaningful for that was realizing that many of the things that we deal with in my union are also things that other union members experience, and they could share what had worked for them, or even just, oh, that's the same thing that we've been experiencing slightly differently. And none of it helps me not feel so alone, and also think about the ways to improve things overall. We often talk about solidarity within our own unions, but for me, mentorship helped me think of that both within governance and then as a union internationally as well, with other unions around the globe. And that has been something that I really want to try to carry forward in my own union participation now as well.
Thank you, Kaden. I think what you're saying about our performance union having the same issues is actually the raison d'être of FIA. It's why we exist and why we meet and we try to find solutions together. Lomniwe?
Yeah, so with me, with mentoring, because, like I mentioned, I got in through Colin and Jack, and I'll say that Colin has been an exceptional mentor, but also Jack has also been quite an exceptional leader. And looking at how mentoring has shaped my career trajectory as well as an actress, and just as a human being, as a leader, not only in the space of the creative sector, but a leader in different areas as well, whereby I look at me being a leader in a different way, with the FFN mentoring program as well. How I lead now is very different to how I would have led years ago. I choose to listen more and to allow for people to let me know what their needs are, and not even get close to assuming that, and come up with these fantastic ideas, but not really serving the people that need to be served. I think a lot of ego was suppressed in terms of allowing for that process to take place. And I think with Saga, especially with how it is structured now, our exco is very diverse. So we have, I think, 3 young people in the exco. We have great representation with women, great representation with race. And these were things that we were struggling with before as an organization, and looking at how the organization is strategically looked at. How do we make sure that young people are in the room when we are making decisions? How are we making sure that Black people, Black women are in the room when we're making decisions about the sector? People who have been previously disadvantaged or marginalized within the sector. How do we now change that as an exco that wants to be inclusive, that is aiming for inclusivity throughout the industry and industry transformation? That process was mentoring in itself for me, looking at the organization holistically. Then you look at the individual mentorship between Colin and myself, and she always says part of the mentorship process has always been, if she doesn't know what I need, then she will not know what to do for me. If I don't ask, then she won't know what to do for me. That has prompted me to become someone who can ask. I ask questions so that she knows, so that Jack knows, so that the rest of the exco knows. This is what she needs, and this is what we can give. If we cannot give it, maybe there is an alternative. So it has always been that sort of relationship whereby they've allowed me to just be the person who's asking. And also with FFN, what was interesting was working with Equity UK, that experience really shifted my perspective of how young people should be approached, especially with things like membership, because I think we always strive, we need the numbers, we need the people to come in, we need people to join, but also how do you now not center yourself as a leader? How do you center the people that matter the most within the organization, the people that you want to become part of this organization? How do you put them at the center? How do you make sure that these people are holding the conversation? How are you holding space for them? Because that is what essentially what we're doing. We're holding space, we're facilitating a process. And that is what has shaped me throughout this year. I've learned how to redirect my thinking, shift my focus a bit more, so that in my process of growth, people are actually joining in that process of growing. Young people can look at my journey and say, I want to become like that, but how do I make sure that the person that they're aspiring to become is not someone who is too far away from them or as at a distance? And because my leaders are not far away from me, I'm able to facilitate that for everyone else that I am now mentoring and shifting, and now I'm putting people in the organization in a strategic way that is slowly but steady. We're not going fast with it. We're not making 2-minute noodles, as we would say. We are making a beautiful cottage pie. So that's been my journey so far.
Thank you, Londiwe. And now, because before I give the floor to the audience, I'd like to ask you one very final question. It's not an easy one, but it's the last one. And this question is, if you could implement just one initiative tomorrow to engage young people in a union with no current engagement, what would that initiative be and why? Ada, would you like to go first?
Sure. To keep it, super sweet and brief, I think that definitely the school program. I think it would be the most effective because I believe we get more and more tired of online engagement. Meetings in person are more beneficial both for the students and the union representatives to establish strong relations. And also soon-to-be graduates need knowledge about the importance of unionizing the most, especially as they're about to face various challenges at the beginning of their career path. It's crucial to know about your rights and have all the possible support.
Thank you, Ada. Marian?
I wrote mine down because this got me excited, this question, Camille. But for me, it's similar to where AEA is at or where the States is at, or Equity UK as well, is for our performing arts institutions to make it a default that their graduates come into the industry unionized and to give them the opportunity to opt out later. And I think that if institutions partnered or actively communicated with the union and perhaps, dreamland of covering at least 3 years of their union membership after graduating, it's them showing their commitment to backing their graduates to successfully thrive in their chosen industry that they've graduated in. And I think having that level of commitment to their practice will also have a good long-lasting impact into their career, not just for them, but also for the industry they're stepping into. But at least I think 3 years is a good enough number of years for you to understand being lost in the industry, being new and finding it really hard, and then later on realizing that, the union has been really good for work mediations, for ascertaining info about my contract, or a community building setup, and that I can do workshops within this union. I'm going to continue being a part of the union. I think it needs to be the default. And I think that's one of the ways to do it.
Thank you, Marian. Kaden?
These are such good answers. So for me, I think the thing that comes to my mind is a little bit broader right now, but it would involve some initiative that allows members to in an accessible way with other and the union's governance structure. It's easy to feel like you're the only one dealing with the things that you're concerned about, or like if you speak up about something that you will be call difficult and cause problems by speaking up about what you need in the workplace. But the union is made up of all of us, and I think that people learning even just some sort of the way that contracts are developed, the fact that there is a national council, that they can elect people, that they can reach out to their elected leaders, is really important, because that helps people feel less alone and less isolating, and less like the problems in their workplace have to stay problems forever. So I would find out some way of helping people realize the union is made up of all of us, and get involved in either large ways or small ways, even just voting in council elections, reaching out to a counselor once when you're a new member, anything like that that helps people realize that the union is all of us, and also the union is not a static thing. We are always growing and improving, and we're doing that together.
Thank you, Kaden. And Londiwe, finally.
Yeah, there's an initiative that I've been pondering for a minute now. When I say a minute, I mean like the entire year. So I've been wanting to, just for my region as a starter, obviously it's a pilot. Of course, I want to start if I had the resources tomorrow, I'd start monologue sessions, monologue Mondays, monologue sessions, monologue Saturday, whatever it is. So an initiative whereby young people who are non-members and members we meet on a particular day during the week, and each person has got a monologue that speaks to the issues of the industry, and we just perform those monologues together, open a debate or a discussion around these issues afterwards, and then we take it from there, whereby we extend it further to dialogue Tuesdays or dialogue Wednesdays, where now we're no longer doing just monologues, but we have a scene between two people, and the scene is related to the issues of the industry. And this would be a theater set up, not necessarily filming. We can film it, but the setup, because I want it to be so intimate, it would be a theater setup. And after the dialogue, same thing happens, whereby we have the debate or an open discussion together. Yeah, so that's the initiative I would implement.
Okay, a lot of food for thought, a lot of things to think about, and that's good. Now we're done with the panel, and I would like to open the floor to the audience for questions. So please, if you want to ask a question, please raise your virtual hands. And once I've gave you the floor, please start by introducing yourself and tell us who the question is for. Any question? The first question is also always the hardest. Anyone? Feel free also to ask question to Celine, who's still there. No? Oh, Joanne, please.
Hi, oops, sorry, let me turn that around. You don't need to see out my window. My name is Joanne Bortz. I am a member of Actors Equity Association, and I have a question that's a little global, because I am curious about how the political situations in all of your individual countries has changed. This may not just be for our younger members, but I think it's really important to figure out what the political situation is in everyone's countries, and how that affects unions. I'm sorry that I can't figure out how to get my face in this, but you can see the Empire State Building. All right, that's the end of my question. Just because I was thinking that the political situation and how unions are accepted in all of these very different countries would affect how much traction you can get from the younger people, and whether the laws are cooperative or maybe stand against. So anyway, thanks. That's my question.
Who would like to go first? So talking about political situation. Oh, Londiwe, please go.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for that question. I'm just taking it because in South Africa, we have a very interesting political landscape whereby we are not a regulated sector. The creative sector is not regulated, which means that we are freelancers through and through. We don't earn any royalties. And there are two bills that we have been fighting for almost, well, rather for over 8 years now. One of them is the Performance Protection Amendment Bill, which would allow actors in this country to start earning from royalties, whereby right now we don't earn any royalties for any repeat shows, and there are repeat shows every single day, and also the Copyright Amendment Bill. So we have been asking for these bills to be signed by our president. Unfortunately, he has not signed them, and because of political reasons, and he has taken the decision to take it to the Constitutional Court, which is the highest court in South Africa. And now we are waiting for the Constitutional Court to see if there would be any change. And of course, because we're not regulated, what we have decided to do in the interim is to start working towards finding collective bargaining, because we are not in the room when directors and producers and broadcasters are making decisions on behalf of actors. And that is why when we get the short end of the stick, we don't necessarily know where to go to after that, because we're not in the room in the first place. But we are working towards having some form of collective bargaining, which we look forward to possibly having by 2029. And of course, there've been other wins we've had, but I think the biggest fight at the moment we have is a lack of regulation in our country. So it affects us hugely politically.
Well, part of me think when thinking about political situation and the impact of the political situation on the union and the attraction for young members, I'm thinking of the US. Maybe, Kaden, you'd like to share something because the situation there is kind of crazy at the moment. So,
Yeah, yes, the situation here is kind of is crazy at the moment. But we're seeing, I think, a lot of attacks on the labor industry in general, just that are very anti-work, a lot of very anti-worker legislation, and also a lot of executive actions, or a lot of legislation proposed that really makes things difficult for workers themselves, or goes against a lot of the things that we've been advocating for, especially a lot of the language around diversity and inclusion. So I think that while that's really, really difficult, there's also ways in which we're seeing people across the country, and young people especially, be activated and ready to step in and figure out how they can make things better and take a stand, and try to overturn a lot of the laws that are being put into place. So I think with that, then it is easy to make that connection to being more activated union members as well, because so many of these things go hand in hand. Labor rights are connected with rights for LGBTQ performers, which are connected with workplace safety in general, and then that goes back to minimum wage and who has access to be able to participate in things. And so I think, as much as it is a terrible situation right now, there's also ways in which a lot of people are very activated, and I hope that continues, and that stands for, it bleeds into stronger union contracts in general. We have a really big negotiation right now in Actors Equity for a contract that expires really soon, and it seems like that's a thing that we're also seeing a lot of that same activation of people who are concerned about what's happening politically, that they're also recognizing the ways that we can make a difference in our workplaces and within our union.
thank you, Kaden. I don't know if Marianne or Ada would like to add anything.
I think I don't know how to add any more eloquence to what Kaden has already shared, but I think for us, It's been really awesome seeing our youth members be super active in the protests, especially with around calling for ceasefire in Palestine, as well as in terms of locally, in terms of participating in other union strikes. So like our nurses, our teachers, and our women's rights protests just happened recently. So people are constantly sort of lending a hand, union to union, supporting one another. So I think that always has a, you know, direct conversation with what is the political climate in our country at the moment. But something specific towards our industry is the Screen Industry Workers Act, which, or SEWA as we call it, which is basically an act that allows us to collectively bargain in terms of the screen sector. But unfortunately, because of all the elections and the local elections, as well as the national election, it's just been really hard to progress within that to prioritize collective bargaining, because we're still basically missing some actions from one of the guilds so that we can actually benefit from this act finally coming into action in 2022. So it's still quite hard. It's still really hard, but for sure the political situation in our country and the impacts of election, it consistently either propels our union forward or holds us back or drags us back. So, yeah.
Thank you, Marion. Ada, you go? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking how to answer this question in a nutshell, because it's such a vast subject. But to keep it brief, I think we're facing some challenges in Poland because of the recent elections. Because, you know, as we started some conversations going, like the governance changed. So you have to go to, you know, point zero to start developing relationships and set up new meetings and so on and yada yada, and presenting them our problems. Because I think that most of the people in the government, they either don't care or they don't know the specifics of actors' problems and actors' fields. They think that actors live as the 1%, you know, of the whole industry, you know, like the big names. And obviously this is not true, but most of these people don't know that. So like I want to mention two things. First thing is that we're facing this challenge that, like I said, it's 1,800 of us. And when our main board came to some talks and they were asked how many actors, professional actors are in Poland, and they go like around 5,000. And how many people is in your union? And they're like, at the moment, it was like around 1,500. So they're like, oh, so that's 20% of actors, you know, please go, and unless you unionize at the level of like 80% of actors, there's no need to talk, because you're not like the unified voice of actors. You're just like some 20% of actors, you know? So like, that's the first challenge. The other challenge is that we truly care about the bill of, let's say, professional artist status, because unless you work as a full-time artist, in case of actors, you work in a public theater full-time, you don't have like the full job contract with all the social benefits. So basically, lots of us are in like in the whole of the system, because unless we pay it from our own pockets, you know, the same in the US, I guess, we're not having our insurance covered, and retirement is not an option. You have to just, you know, work till you die, basically. So we wanted to go through with this bill to have the opportunity to pay, like, in some terms, given the fact that the actor's job, especially freelance actor, looks like, you know, it's the project job most of the way. So we don't have like the month-to-month salary like most people do. So that was like the big issue for us. And because of the government changed, they changed this bill. in a way. Like, I don't want to even go into details, but still we have to like start over with the whole negotiation. And yeah, it's like 2 hours, 2 years of job just basically vanished. So sorry. I wanted not to keep it this chaotic, but it's kind of hard without going into some, specifics of Polish landscape, especially for actors. But yeah.
Thank you, Ada. I think there's a question from Viola. Viola?
Yes, I found the virtual hand. I'm sitting in Denmark and I am in the board for Danish Artists Union and joined recently also, so poked on the shoulder. So I'm just very excited to be here. It's my first encounter with FIA. And I was curious, Marian, about because I think your group of people is a little bit like Ada, the same size of ours. And I'm just curious to hear how many percentage of the members are under 35, if you know.
I actually asked my my awesome equity staff, but I haven't heard back from them because they've been really busy. So I am happy to get that information out to you guys when I get it.
Thank you. Would be cool.
Thank you. And I think there is one last question, and that's a question from Valentine.
Yes, thank you, Camille. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Valentine, and I actually work for for another trade union federation, a sister trade union federation from FIA that is called UNIME. So we represent trade unions and workers, representing behind the scene workers in film and TV production and live performance as well. And following FIA's steps and FIA Future Now, we're also setting up currently a youth working group within our sector. And we're having a first meeting of the working group in Lisbon this year, in a couple of months. And it's the first time the youth people in the working group are involved in international work. And so I have questions for all of you, the panelists, but also all of the other people in the room. Just for me to know, do you have any advice for us with the experience of FIA Future Now, to engage a network of young trade unionists that are not necessarily familiar with international work? I know that for some of you, it has been helpful for you to also access to new position within your union. You were not necessarily familiar with international work before. So for me, it would be very useful to know a bit of the process and what I should keep in mind in preparing these meetings to make sure it's as inclusive and as useful for the young workers in our sector.
If it's okay, Camille, I will answer
Sure.
this first because I have to
Please.
run away to run
Sure.
auditions very soon. For me, the most kind of similar to what I mentioned before, it's by sharing the experience and allowing people to be in the same room as you and by observing. So in this group chat, I actually have Megan Goldsman and Jess Bennett, who is part of the Equity Youth Committee. Megan has actually just moved to the UK. So she's in there as part of our union, but it was just me purely encouraging people to join. I was like, come, please be a part of this webinar so you can get an idea of the energy and the vibe, because I do think it's really hard to share with everyone how inspired I was in 2022 by it's easier for me to just go and experience it firsthand, be as curious, be as open, be willing to ask all of the silly questions, but none of it is actually silly. And just by the process of participating and showing up is actually the only way to really understand things. So I'm really stoked that my girl Megan is here, and Megan is also going to be there for the big conference, the FIA conference, to represent equity youth. So yay, it's not just me getting all fuzzy and inspired, but that would be my advice, and I feel like that's what's worked for us. And I'm just really stoked that the energy that FIA Future Now has given me has inspired 26 other of my youth union members to participate, and 2 of them are here, and that makes me so happy. But I will also take my leave because I have to put my director hat very soon. So thank you so much,
Bye-bye,
everyone.
Marianne. Thank you. Anyone else would like to answer to Valentine? Landiwa?
I think also I think I said it before, the language aspect, when you break down what it is that you want to do specifically for the young members in terms of international work, and being more interactive with FIA and asking questions, and even with us FFN, although we are all like spread all over the world, even if you send us emails or just getting in touch with us more and more and more, and just feeding that energy back to the members, or even, just getting whatever you can, because sometimes we really don't know what we're doing, all of us. We're just trying to move along, and also just trying, we're all just learning in the process. I'll say for me, what has really helped me along the way has been listening to my peers, the energy in the room, whether it's virtual, whether it's physical. Even now, I'm getting so much inspiration and so many ideas that I've jotted down already, just through this panel, although I'm a part of it. But some of the stuff that has been mentioned here, I will feed back to our exco, and obviously try to feed back to our youth as well. So it's sort of these interactions when they come up, or even speaking to Camille, asking if, you can hang 10 there in one of our meetings if necessary, then, just feeding off that energy to young members. Yeah, I hope I was not all over the place.
Thank you, Londiwe. Kate and Ada, would like to add on?
The one thing that I'll add is that for me, I think that especially when I was newer or thinking a lot about people who are just getting involved, it would have been a little bit overwhelming to think about too many of the global things right at the beginning, that it was helpful for me to know, like, find out ways of connecting with the people closest to me that I was working with, and then in my union, and then outside of the country. In so even just hearing that things exist, but not trying to get people involved in all of the ways at the beginning, has been helpful, thinking about my own journeys, so that it feels like things that people can commit to and be interested in, but also that they don't feel pressure to do everything all at once. So maybe I think for me, maybe it would start with like sharing different resources, and then saying, if you're interested in this, here's how we can talk more about it, and then taking the next steps. And then if people are interested in that, then they'll be the ones to step forward and I like talk with you about it, and then those might be good fits to connect in the other ways that people were talking about. Could be good, I think, ways of figuring out how to get people involved in the ways that are most meaningful to them.
Okay, that's very useful. Thank you so much.
Ada would like to add something?
Frankly, I think that everything has been said. So.
All right. Well, thank you all, and wishing you luck, Valentine, with your committee. I'm sure it's going to be great. And so this is the end of our event. Thank you all for participating. Thanks again to all our panelists, all our speakers. I hope today's session offered some valuable insight on how to engage young people in unions, and that we will soon see more initiative for young members in the FIA unions and in the Unime unions. So have a good evening or a good day, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.